Oh, I forgot to take some off the screen, but welcome back to another edition of the podcast. Tonight it is our Game Week 21 National League predictions. There we go. You can see our lovely faces now, our handsome faces, however you want to describe it. But no, welcome back to another edition of the podcast. It's our Game Week 21 National League predictions and also a bit of an FA Cup preview for those National League sides that are competing in the National League this week. In the FA Cup, I should say, this week. It's certainly been a busy week in the National League. We've had a managerial sacking. 3 different sides have been at the top of the table over the past 7 days. The question, and one of the main talking points of tonight's podcast, alongside, of course, in all games, is 3 up, 3 down still needed in the National League? Now, before we get on to all of that, Paul, firstly, how are you doing? And are you looking forward to Saturday's game?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's a big one for Wealdstone in their recent history. I think we got to the second round in 2016. Haven't been there since. Only been in the third round. Well, last time in the third round was 1977. I think played QPR. So, yeah, big day out for Wealdstone on Saturday in relative terms. You know, they've got live on ITV. They've sold out every single ticket. So I understand that it'll be a capacity crowd and a record crowd for the Vale. Their current home. They have had many more at their previous ground at Lower Mead. But, so I think it's going to be touching sort of nearly 3,500 at the weekend. So Wycombe has sold their allocation. Got ITV there. So it's got all the recipes for a decent day out. 11:30 kickoff. So anyone who does want to watch is on ITV prior to those 3 o'clock kickoffs. So it's got all the recipes possibly for a cup upset. But as we spoke about off air there, Luke, it's Wycombe Wanderers are absolutely flying. So we've got to hang our hat on the hope that we're at home, big crowd. Do they take it seriously? Blah, blah, blah. And we have got a chance. We haven't got a chance at the same token. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and for my side, Halifax, we're back in action this Saturday after actually getting an impressive point away at Forest Green Rovers. Of course, we're back in action against Southend on Saturday. So that's going to be an interesting one. Of course, we win, we're back in the playoffs. So it's quite a big game week, I think, for both clubs. Something I do want to talk about tonight, though, is I think it was it yesterday? I think it was announced that Angelo Harrops had actually been dismissed of his duties at Braintree. Now, it was quite a controversial decision. I've seen a lot of Braintree fans are actually against the fact that they've let Angelo Harrops go. He's actually come out and actually stated that he think he'd actually took the club as far as he thought he could take them. Were you quite surprised in that? They sit 20, of course, back-to-back defeats, but I think obviously there were quite high expectations for Braintree, wasn't there, with the amount of additions that they made, and on paper quite strong additions as well. For them to sit 20th, are you surprised they've let him go, or do you think it's justified?
Yes and no. I am surprised because he got them to the playoffs twice in 2 seasons, got them up last year. It looks like they've recruited well in terms of experience and know-how for the National League. For one reason or another, it hasn't worked out, Luke, has it? And I'm not surprised in one sense because any team who comes up to the National League wants to stay there. They don't want to start yo-yoing. They don't want that chance of it slipping through their hands, coming down, because they were in the National League a few seasons ago. It's taken them a while to get back up. Will Oxford City come straight back up? As an example from last season, it's probably unlikely. If the likes of Wealdstone or Maidenhead go down, will they come back up to the National League? So when you're in it, whether you want to be in it, whether you're prepared and ready for it at that particular time, you've got to try and stay in it and consolidate. So I can see why they've made that change, because sometimes it helps and fortunes are reversed and they'll start picking up points. But their last 2 results haven't been brilliant, have they, against teams around them, which I think is probably the worrying factor, and that's what's really affected the decision to get rid of Harrops. Who do they get, though, Luke? It's a real difficult one. Whoever they get, they're going to have to spend money on that individual's coaching team, that individual, whoever they get, is going to have to now sort of look at the squad they've got and There'll be a turnover of players come the transfer window in January. I can see why they've done it. I think he's probably been a little bit harshly done by, but it shows the character of the guy. If he's turned around and said, I've taken him as far as I could, he clearly either sees the limitations he has with the squad and that club, or the limitations in himself potentially. But he's a highly regarded manager, and I don't think he'll be out of work too long.
I think in a certain way, I look at this change at Braintree, and I actually think this could potentially be quite an ambitious decision, because you look at Angelo Harrops, I think it'd probably be at the moment, it'd be touch and go, it'd be quite split for most people, whether they'd think Braintree would survive or not at the moment. You know, you look at the sides down there, you've got obviously Maidenhead around you, Fylde, Wealdstone and Woking just above. So it'd be quite touch and go, I think, for most people, and split between fans, whether they think Braintree would survive. Why I think it's quite ambitious is the fact that you look at what he did to get them promoted. You look at where they are at the moment. It's not been an awful start for Braintree. You look in the summer, you look at the amount of signings. They made 26 additions, and a lot of those players were well-established National League players. And I think on paper they look like quite ambitious signings, because the players were so established in this division. But they're all quite aging players as well, who've been around in this division for a number of years now. So for me to see them where they are, I don't think I'm hugely shocked. I did think that perhaps they'd be doing a little bit better than what they are doing at the moment. But I say it's ambitious is because what is Braintree's expectations then? Are they wanting to be top half? Are they wanting to be mid-table? Because I look at that squad and you probably think if you can get the best out of Vinny Effingham and of course Robertson as well, and the likes of Firefield, then you'd probably say that this Braintree side could probably get in the top half if you can get the best out of those players. And that is something that I think we both have to agree is Angelo Harrops hasn't done so far, has he?
No, not at all. And, you know, it's a really difficult one because they've only just come up. So they don't know the league too well. Angelo Harrops doesn't know the league. You know, it's his first foray into it as a manager. And I think he's probably realised that it's not just getting names on paper and having that squad that you think will do okay. Or you don't win games on paper. It's a well-known fact. We all know that, and you have to go out and actually do it. And if he's probably struggled with what the National League is, because it's a quality league, and the likes of Maidenhead, Wealdstone, Yeovil to a point in this season, having just come up and down and up again, maybe Fylde. They're the sorts of teams that need to come in, consolidate and build slowly. And Braintree are in that bracket. I think probably what's made their decision possibly easier is if you look at their results of the teams around them, it's not been too impressive. They've lost to Wealdstone, they lost to Boston, they've lost to Maidenhead. And they let a lot of goals in, 3 against Wealdstone, 4 against Boston, 3 against Maidenhead, just as those 3. Now, it's a lot of goals against teams who don't score a lot of goals. So, and they're not scoring too many themselves. And it's that old age thing. If you let some in one end and you don't score the other end, you're not going to win too many football matches. So I think it probably appears to be the right decision, and Angelo Harrops has understood that, whether he's towing the party line and he's just being professional, or whether he genuinely believes that he's taken them as far as he can. Who they get next is going to be hugely important, Luke, and it could be an ambitious appointment. Do they go for the Darren Souls of this world that are out of work? There's a lot of National League South jobs that have come up. So there's a lot of managers' jobs available. Is Braintree one that's favourable? Being in the bottom 4 or 5 of the National League is a tough gig, with half a season left. So whoever they go and get has got a hard job. We've seen Harry Wheeler go in at not Harry Wheeler, go in at Ebbsfleet, and he's not changed their fortunes. So yes, tough. It's a tough one, and I wouldn't want to be the board at Braintree, and I don't think I'd want to be the next manager. Someone's always going to back themselves to get them out of it, but it's going to be a tough gig.
I think as well, if you wanted to take that Braintree job, I think they'd be quite restricted with players that they can actually bring in, because you look at the amount that they've brought in so far. I think you alluded to it in the summer, actually, Paul. I think you mentioned that the fact, yes, on paper, this business is quite impressive, but how are they actually being able to afford all these players? And if they don't achieve what they set out to achieve, then financially there may have been a bit of difficulty, to be fair. And I think this is going to be what's going to happen now. Can Braintree actually bring in any more players because of the amount of players that they've brought in? And that might be the only concern I'd have if I was a Braintree fan at the moment. When you think of like potential managers that could come in, it does feel like it's the same old names: Darren Sarll, Dal McMahon, of course the former Dagenham manager. I think Darren Sarll probably would be the manager. If I was Braintree at the moment, I'd be looking for a manager. I'd probably say it'd be the perfect choice for me, because he plays quite an industrial style of football. And I think the type of players that Braintree have, they're experienced players that know this division. Maybe that's the style that they want to kind of head down. You know, you've got like Vinny Effingham, previously played under Sarll. Robertson's obviously played under Sarll as well. And he'll be well aware of the majority of the squad. So for me, overall, I think that would be the perfect appointment. The question is, are Braintree capable of bringing in a manager like that? Because he's previously just been at Hartlepool, of course, lost his job there. And prior to that, obviously, at Woking, where he lost his job. But I don't know. I think a lot of people will have mixed opinions on him as a manager, won't they? Darren Sarll. I don't think I'd like to see him at like a Halifax, but I think perhaps at like a Braintree, where you need to just stay in this division at the moment, that might be the perfect route for them to go down. Is there anyone else in mind for you, or?
No, not that sort of immediately springs to mind and stands out, because there's a lot of very good managers in the National League, and a lot of them are in employment. Again, you may, and if you had a bit more time, you can analyse who the assistant manager or head coaches at some of these National League clubs or in League 1 or 2 that might want to have a go at managing, a National League team on their own right. We've seen youth team coaches come out and take jobs in this league and other National League So, yeah, I think that, Braintree have now got to set an expectation. They've got to finish 5th from bottom. And that's as simple as that. As a minimum, 5th from bottom. They've got to stay in the league. They have invested heavily. You look at their squad, like I just had a quick look at it, and they've got a massive amount of experience in their Luke, haven't they? And like I said, if you can get a tune out of them, then they've got the chance of getting out of it. But the problem is, if they're not beating teams around them like they haven't done recently, that's where it becomes really difficult, because you can't see them getting results at the top end of the table. If you're not getting results against other struggling teams, then you're going to be banging trouble come January, February, March time.
I think you say there about the best. I think what they need to achieve is 5th from bottom. For me, I actually think that's probably not going to be acceptable at the moment, because they've just sacked Angelo Harrops. They're actually 5th from bottom at the moment. But I look at that squad, and I think for me, the Braintree board are actually wanting to finish higher than 5th from bottom. I think they actually want them to be in a mid-table position, if not higher, to be honest, based off that letting obviously how it go. Because I actually think he's a good manager. I think he should be. I'd like to think that he'll get a job in this division again, or at least a job in the National League South that's quite attractive, where he's got the potential to be able to get them into this division.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I completely agree. Any board will go into a league in the September and say, right, we could get in mid-table playoffs, promotion. It depends on the level that they're looking at. Yes, Braintree will be saying, look, we can probably trouble the middle of the table, potentially the playoffs. It's very ambitious for a team that's just come up. Sometimes, Luke, we talk about it last year with York. York had this ambition of trying to be promoted, and Matt Ugler come out and sort of think, by the time the season ends, their priority would have been to stay in the league. And I think that's really where Braintree's board have now got to realistically look. Yes, if you're going to get mid-table, brilliant. But why they've sacked Angelo Harrops isn't because they're 5th from bottom and should be mid-table. They're probably scared that they're going to get relegated and not finish 5th from bottom. So, a new manager comes in to take the pressure off him a little bit and say, right, 5th from bottom's the minimum. If we can get higher, even better. But they've got to stay in the league, and at the moment they are fortunately just above that bottom four. But I think it's only on goal difference with a couple of other teams. So it's now probably is the right time to make the change if they're going to do it. Give the new manager a little bit more time. Getting him in January will be difficult because, like you said, the squad turnover is going to happen. But at least that new manager can assess the squad they've got now. And then in January, you have to make changes, then he can do it. If he comes in January, he's got no chance to assess the squad as it is and see how they can possibly improve before the ability to transfer and churn the squad. So, yeah, interesting times with Braintree because, teams that are at the bottom there, Willstone have picked up. Maidenhead will always pick up a result. Our Woking getting sucked in like we spoke on Sunday night. Boston haven't really sort of shown any consistency. So, Braintree have got to take advantage now with that new manager and try and get a new manager bounce and get a few more points on the board. Yeah,
you also look at Braintree's upcoming games as well. Gateshead at home on Saturday. Of course, there's a bit of a break in league action, which might probably a good time, isn't it, for a manager to come in as well, so you can get to know the players without being thrown straight in at the deep end. But obviously, a bit of a break with National League Cup and the FA Trophy. But then after that Gateshead game in the league, Yeovil away. Of course, Yeovil so far, I think overall have had quite a strong start to the season. And then they've got Oldham at home just before Christmas, which won't be easy either, before having to travel to Dagenham, who, Dagenham at home this season have been pretty strong as well. So you look at those fixtures and it's a tough set of fixtures for me overall for Braintree. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do in the next couple of weeks. Angelo Harrops, then, do you see him getting a job in this division? For me personally, of course, he's a young manager. I could see him getting a job at one of the, like a Woking potentially. I know Doyle's under a lot of pressure at the moment, and perhaps, if he's dismissed there, then I could see Angelo Harrops going there to of course, Woking. And I think it'd be a good move as well, because I feel like Woking are a club where there's a lot of potential there if they can get the right owner in as well, because they certainly do attract quite healthy crowds for this division.
Yeah, no, without doubt. Obviously, in the National League South, the league below, Weymouth have sacked their manager today. Bath are looking for a manager. The other one has gone out of my head. Who's looking for a manager? And you like
it? There was someone you mentioned earlier, and I've forgotten because you actually messaged me telling me.
Bobby Wilkinson at Hemel Hempstead Town is going to be under massive amount of pressure. He's, I think, 14, 15 games without a win. They haven't won a game since September, and they got beat 6-1 by Dorking at home on Monday night. So, the likes of him, he's still in the job, so it's fair enough. But, that's the sort of job. If Harrop can't get into the National League, there is some fairly attractive jobs that will probably pop up in the South for him to either help them stay in the league, the likes of Weymouth, who are in that bottom 3 or 4, or Bath, who've got massive amount of potential and stagnated slightly under Jerry Gill. Could he be the person? Clearly, you've got to consider the location of where it is to where he might live. Again, that consideration. It's, the further you go down the leagues, the less likely it is that you can afford to move because of salaries and everything else. And, just an assumption I make, but you can't imagine that it's as easy to do that. So, some interesting times for Angelo Harrops. He's not going to be without interest, and he will apply for jobs and no doubt be interviewed, and it'd be interesting to see where he ends up.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And just moving away from Braintree now, and reflecting a little bit on Tuesday and Wednesday's games. Of course, I think one of the major events or major games, or even major upsets in midweek, was actually Altrincham defeating York by 3-0. I think most people were shocked by that result. But without speaking about that game in general, I want to specifically focus in on one player, and that's Regan Linner. 11 goals so far he's scored this season. He actually scored 14 last season, and we're not even halfway through the season. He's almost met that tally. 7 of his goals this season have come in the last 4 games. For me, I genuinely feel that on his day, this lad's probably, I would say, a top 3 National League striker. The issue is that he's not consistently over games scoring. 1 week he'll score a hat-trick and then you won't see him again for a few games. So, yeah, how highly do you rate Regan Linney overall and Altrincham in general so far this season?
Well, I was surprised by the result because the way York have done so well, but it shouldn't be as a surprise because we know how well Altrincham are at home, how good they are at home. Rather, we know what a good football inside they are. I think the likes of Regan Linney, he's not been in the league too long, and it sometimes takes players a little time to adapt and get up to speed and become experienced in the league, especially when you look at a position like centre forward or an attacking midfield player, number 10, someone that a club hangs their hat on to get assists and goals. That sometimes takes a little bit of time to do that. I know he's 27 years old, but you got to look at where he's been before. He played for FC United in the National the Northern Premier League. So, he's had to make that step up a couple of divisions. He's now his third season at Alty, and he played 32 games last year and scored 14 goals. That's nearly one every 2 games. That's not a bad record for someone who's not been regularly playing at National League level. So it may take him, it's taken him 3 years to really understand it. Probably get a run of games, be the focal point, all those sorts of things. And now they're probably going to benefit from the fact that he's shown a bit of form. And strikers play on form, don't they? You'll get one goal, then you'll get another goal, then you get another goal, then you might get an assist and have a good run, and then you might have a period where you don't at all. Hopefully now he's going to make that that jump and start being consistent and get sort of the numbers he got last year. Yeah, to do it against a team like York, who have been good and at the top end of the table, is not going to give his confidence any harm whatsoever. So it's good to see players like that who've made the step up from the lower divisions rather than come the other way down. And good luck to him. And it's a good find from Altrincham if in the next 2 or 3 years, he continues to do this and gets himself a move further up the table if he does at the age he is, or he just stays there and becomes a bit of a mainstay.
I think Altrincham in general, though, a massive win for them. I actually managed to watch this game, so I was quite lucky to be able to watch it on Tuesday evening. And I have to say, it wasn't a freak result, which some may, you look in, you think of York losing 3-0 away, you might think, well, Altrincham probably had 3 chances and scored. Altrincham could have won that game 4-5-0. And it's a statement, I think, from Altrincham, because I've kind of wrote them off all season, saying that I don't think they're as strong as what they were last season. Of course, they've lost Con Clark, and I don't think anyone expected them to actually replace him, but I don't think anyone expected the players to be able to produce the amount of goals between them that what he did last season and goal contributions in general. But for me, I look at Altrincham and I think on the day, they're a side that can give anyone a game in this division. So you can't really write them off from finishing inside a playoff spot at the moment. Of course, 6th, 7th, on great form at the moment. They must be in the form table. I'd have thought it'll only be Oldham and I think Forest Green, who probably got who are higher above them in the form table at the moment. So, Altrincham, they're always a tricky side to play against, and they're probably another side that probably like your Halifaxers, who sides right off at the start of the season, particularly when they lose 1 or 2 players. But they're going strong at the moment, and you have to say credit to Phil Parkinson to actually be able to maintain their ambitions of wanting to finish inside the playoffs, because they're certainly an ambitious club, and they're closer to getting out of this division at the moment than what they are of actually dropping out of it, and that's quite unknown for a club like Altrincham over the last couple of decades or so. So I think if you're an Altrincham fan at the moment, especially with the crowds they're getting, you have to say it's looking good, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt, and I think you're right. It's to be looking at the top end of the table rather than the bottom end for any team, especially the size of Altrincham, is where you want to be. And I think the good thing about Altrincham, we spoke about over the last few seasons, Luke, is they've slowly built. They went full time, and then once they went full time, they then sort of build on the squad. They've had players that have come in, and one lad that has just come in from Man United on loan last year's ended up playing for the Polish first team this year. So they're clearly a football club that they've got players who want to go and play for them. They've got good relationships with those teams in the Northwest, and they're they seem to be a very sound, well-run football club that are just chipping away at this to get to a point where maybe like a Sutton, like a Harrogate, they'll end up getting into the Football League at some point in the future. But you're right. I think it doesn't look like they're going to be going down anytime soon, but they'll probably be knocking on the door at the top end and the promotion in the next few years. So they took advantage of York on Wednesday night. York had an off day. By all accounts, the manager's almost outthought himself and changed the team and tactics, and it hasn't quite worked. So you got to take advantage of games like that, and they've certainly done that.
Now we're going to have a look at the live chat. Of course, before we get on to doing the predictions and final topics that I want to speak about tonight. Something I do want to mention as well is, I say it's a statement from Altrincham. It's also a statement from York that they're beatable this season, because they came to the Shea, and obviously I might be a bit biased here, but honestly, I think we threw that game away rather than York actually being really impressive, managing to get back into the game. I think it's impressive that the fact that they did, but you look at the goals we conceded, they were horrendous goals to actually concede. And we could have probably won that game a 2 or 3-0 in that second half, particularly. And the difference between us and the Altrincham side who beat them is the fact that Altrincham killed the game off and took the chances. So for me, I think York seemed to be beatable. And it kind of brings me on to my next topic, is 3 up, 3 down, and how open this league is in terms of the title race. Because at the moment, there's probably, I would say, 4 sides in my head that I think either one of them you could make a case for winning the title. But there's also a case for, your Gatesheads, your Rochdales. Could they potentially join this title race as well? And that's something I do want to speak about shortly, but we will come to the live chat first, because we're half an hour in and we've not even checked. Of course, it's quite a disrupted game week. There's only 6 or 7 National League games taking place. We're going to, of course, predict the FA Cup games as well for the National League sides that are competing. Of course, Mr. Luke's also coming and said, "Hello, gents. Disappointing loss against Rochdale. I'm not happy about the approach the game on Tuesday, but I have faith we can bounce back at the weekend against Braintree. No pressure, lads. 3 up, 3 down is not going to happen anytime soon." And yeah, to be fair, we speak about this topic, and it's something I've been speaking about ever since I launched the podcast. Before I even were doing podcasts, it's something that was a major topic. And to be honest, I think we thought something may have changed when Wrexham got promoted, but it wasn't the case. What's your thoughts on 3 up, 3 down overall? I'm sure you're in favour of it, but is there any solution for you? I'm just going to quickly get me charged, and then
I genuinely think that over the last few years, the league, the strength of the league and the quality of the teams and the players and the management in the National League show that they deserve a 3 up, 3 down. When you look at the teams that have gone up, stayed up, got further promoted into League One, notwithstanding the likes of Wrexham, who are a little bit of an anomaly because of the funding they've got, but even so, they've still had to adapt and sort of still get on and do it. So I think the league and the quality of the league deserves a 3 up, 3 down. I think that probably is what isn't helping them, because they'll turn around and say the quality of the league's not great. You don't need 3 up, 3 down. The stuffy old suits of the FA and the EFL and the old boys club that there's an assumption that that's why it's only sort of 1 up with 1 through the playoffs. But what they then probably going to turn around and say is they're scared to that 3 up, 3 down to upset the establishment of those Football League teams that have been in there a number of years. Because as we have seen, Luke, those teams that come down don't invariably go straight back up, do they? They seem to tumble a little bit more before they sort of get themselves going again. The likes of Wrexham were in 15 years. Oldham have had their struggles. Scunthorpe are in National League North now. Yeovil, you can go on and on and on. So I think they run scared of the National League. That would be my gut feel, is they're running scared of the National League and the quality that's in it. Personally, as a fan, I think when you look at 1 up automatically, 1 through the playoffs, and 4 go down, it helps the league because it goes almost to the wire every season. That the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's still games dependent, result dependent in some of the games. So there's no dead rubbers, if you like. It's not done and dusted with some weeks to go where we know who's going up, who's going down. You still got half the teams in the mix for something. So I think from that point of view, and that Vanarama sort of suggestion of the league and how nuts it is, that is played because of the 1-up, 1-3 promotion and the 4 down. So yeah, in one way, I don't want it to change because that's fun, but in another way, I think the
podcast, it makes it more entertaining. For a neutral, it's brilliant, but for us fans to get out of the division, it's horrendous, isn't it?
Yeah, for all those old established football league clubs that don't want to be in our league, it's frustrating as hell. Mm-hmm. And I think we deserve a 3-up, 3 down system. But like as Colin said, it ain't going to happen. So one of those things. We'll put up with the dramas that the National League bring up, and we'll have this discussion year on year. And one day, the powers that will come up to scratch and come up to date and go, actually, we need a 3-up, 3 down. But who knows when that will be?
I think overall, we're going to be biased because obviously we run a podcast on the National League, but I genuinely think this is probably the most entertaining league in England. I can't say for the world because I don't watch every single league, but in England, I genuinely think this is the most entertaining league. Of course, there's a lot of talk about the Championship and how unpredictable that is, but 3 sides get promoted from that league, 3 sides get promoted from League One, and 4 sides get promoted from League Two. And we don't even need to talk about the Premier League because that's just awful. But for me overall, like I said, I think this league's really entertaining, and part of that is because only 2 sides get promoted and so many sides are involved in the playoffs. And also to add, 4 sides actually go down. Now, if you look at, and this is how pathetic it is overall, and why I feel League Two is probably such a poor and one of the lesser entertaining leagues overall, you actually look at 2 relegation spots at the moment in League Two. If that was in the National League at the moment, relegation, let's be brutal, it would probably more or less be done and dusted because Ebbsfleet, no disrespect, but it's going to take something special for them to get out of the position that they're in at the moment. And to be honest, you look at Tuesday night for Boston and the way they're going, it's going to take something as well for them to be able to get out of the position they're in as well. So you'd probably, most people, be saying that Boston and Ebbsfleet are down at this point. And if that was like League Two, then relegation will be done and dusted. And your Maidenheads, your Files, your Wheelstones would be now, and they'd be probably not have too much to play for, to be honest, because you're more or less going to be safe. That's how poor League Two is at the moment. And for me, you spoke about the amount of former Football League sides. Of course, a lot have managed to escape this division, like your Stockports, your Grimsbys, your Wrexhams, your Notts Counties, and even your Chesterfields. But there's still a large amount of big sides in this division. Oldham, York, Southend are probably the 3 major clubs. But you've also got your Yeovils, your Halifaxes, even lower down in the lower leagues, your Chesters and your Scunthorpes. The reason I don't think it's going to change, which is disappointing, is the fact when Wrexham was in our division and Notts County, we saw a season, and this is thanks to only 2 getting promoted, a season that I don't think we'll ever probably see again for a very long time, where 2 sides got over 100 points. And Ryan Reynolds was actually an advocate for actually promoting 3 up, 3 down, and how pathetic it was. And nothing changed. And you think of, the amount of following that he has, and they didn't even really discuss it, did the EFL. For me, overall, that shows that nothing's going to change. If he can't, have an impact, then I can't see anyone having an impact. I think the only thing about that season that I think genuinely would have had an impact was if Notts County didn't actually get promoted, because I think it would have forced a change because both sides got over 100 points, were miles above everyone else. And I think if Notts didn't get promoted that season, it would have been a catalyst for change because it would have been so pathetic for them not to have got out of this division. But obviously, in the end, they did manage to win in the playoffs. Is that something you look at now back and maybe think if Notts didn't get promoted, it would have been a bit of a catalyst for change of adding an extra promotion spot?
No, I don't think so, because like you said, for all the reasons you said in terms of what was so good about it and what wasn't good about it and what could have happened is, the exposure the National League got because of Wrexham, irrespective of the 100 points and the race they had with Notts County, it still didn't cause the EFL and the powers to be to say, right, should we have a 3 up, 3 down? How much they discussed it, we'll never know, Luke. It may well have been discussed till the cows come home. It might never even have been mentioned. So I don't mean it isn't going to happen, and we just got put up with that. But I think you're right. The National League is a very, very entertaining league, and I don't think that needs to come from the likes of me and you who watch it and commentate on it and talk about it. You've only got to go on the terraces of the National League teams, and you will find supporters from down here in Wealdstone, Chelsea, Tottenham, Watford, QPR, Halifax will have likes of Huddersfield, Leeds, even Braintree or Ebbsfleet may have the likes of Charlton, as an example. So Crystal Palace, there is fans from around the EFL clubs and Premier League clubs who will come and watch National League, and they are pleasantly surprised at the quality. They're pleasantly surprised at the experience, that you're closer to the action, and that kids can move around freely. You can have a beer at half time, and all these sorts of things that is sort of getting a little bit stale and a little bit far-fetched at Premier League and EFL level. So it doesn't come from us. We know it's an entertaining league. I think personally that, like I said, the 2 up, 4 down aids that. And if we went to 3 up, 4 down, would we lose a bit of that? Possibly. But I can see why clubs want 3 up, 3 down. It makes complete sense because it will be parity with the rest of the EFL and the pyramid. But it isn't going to happen. So we'll just put up with that bonkers nature of a league that we watch.
We'll be speaking about this next year when we get a load of new fans, because I'm looking now at League Two and some of the sides down there. You've got Carlisle, who are currently bottom of League Two. Now, if they get relegated into non-league, they're going to come into this division and once again be shocked like Oldham were, like Notts County were when they first came down into this division. Swindon. Now, if Swindon drop down into the National League, they'd get stuck here. And I know for you guys, that would you say they'd probably be the biggest club to ever have dropped into this division if they came down? When you think about it, like Notts County, maybe I'd say,
possibly,
maybe.
Notts County. You look at Oldham. We're in the Premier League. Swindon have been in the Premier League. They're going to be well up there, aren't they, as a big club? You look at their ground and what it holds and where they have been and the players they've had and the managers they've had in the past. It's incomprehensible to think that someone like Swindon Town could be playing the likes of Wealdstone, Braintree, Oxford City, whoever comes up from next season. It's really hard to sort of, as a Swindon fan, I can imagine it's absolutely gut-wrenching to see where your club's been to come down to the National League. For teams like us who've been in National League a little while and like the league, then it's great to have those teams in it, and how their fans react to it, and the fact that they're going to get beat by the likes of Wealdstone and Halifax. They're not going to romp the league like they all think they are going to do. So, yeah, big club Swindon. It'd be interesting to see how they survive dropping into the part of the non-league game, especially with their sort of financial issues they've had over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. From our perspective, I think we probably want them to drop into the National League. It's certainly be a good away day, a big club as well. But to be fair, a lot of sides down there, it does feel like we're going to get some quite big clubs dropping down next season. You've got Carlisle, Tranmere are down there, Morecambe, even potentially Colchester could drop down. I think Southend fans will be hoping for that, to be honest. Have a bit of a derby for them guys. But no, the only thing I will say is, like, we've had comments before, obviously, on the channel. Most of it's positive. One that did come up, it was actually kind of a positive comment, but they also said that we're both happy. It's good to have people like Luke and Paul because they're both happy to be, just in the National League, and that's why they run the podcast, because they're not in any rush to get out of it. I don't know about you, Paul. Obviously, as a Wealdstone fan, it's probably a little bit different. Maybe it's not. For me personally, as a Halifax fan, I'm not happy us being in the National League. I think it's probably the level that we belong at the moment based on the crowds and everything. But I'd like to think that we can get out of this division. I don't know about you, Paul. Is that an ambition for you when you think of a comment like that? Or
listen,
you not even think about that at the moment?
No, we got to be as Wealdstone fans. You got to be realistic and go. We're loving being amongst the big boys in non-league football without a shadow of a doubt, and competing, and doing not so badly considering what we have, and everyone knows what we've got and what we haven't got, and I think the longer term ambition, Luke, has always got to be for any football club is to be the best they can be. And if let's hope that Wealdstone, Halifax are ambitious enough to see that they can be an EFL club. We've got potentially a new ground in the pipeline. That's all very dependent in the next few years of us keeping National League status because of investment and sponsorship and everything else that comes along with that. So there's the added pressure from our point of view to, if we're going to progress the football club, we can't stand still now. We've got to keep going, and you've got to improve off the pitch just to be where you are now. People will catch you up. So we're very happy to be in the National League. Spent years in the wilderness down in non-league. The Ryman's League, the Ishmael League, the Southern League in different teams since the 80s when we were in the National League, the top league prior to sort of the demise of the club to a point because of different things. So to be amongst this and to be playing Wycombe Wanderers on the television at ITV on Saturday, it's a pinch yourself moment for Wealdstone fans and many of those supporters that have worked their absolute socks off and put so much effort in to keep the club going. So yes, we are very happy to be here. I think we're ambitious not to stand still, but we're realistic that we've got to just hang on in there at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I'd like to see us get out. If it's this season, I don't think it will be, but you never know. That's always been the ambition for me, is to get Halifax back in, to see Halifax back in the EFL. But no, we're going to actually have a look at the league table and then come on to predictions. Although there aren't many games to predict, there's probably been quite a lot to talk about tonight, and it's been good. And I do apologise. I know we've kind of not really looked to the live chat much, but like I said, there's been quite a lot of topics that we've wanted to discuss tonight. Please check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. I've even forgot to mention them. If you use the link in the description, you'll get 50% off your card machine, no contracts or monthly fees. Obviously, a lot of the viewers, may not be something that interests you. You may not own your own business, but please share it about to your local football club, your supporters clubs, because what I'm really doing is a favour. And like I said, I can't highly suggest Cards Accepted enough. I think it's Maidenhead Supporters Club. They've used them before, and I think they've got positive things to say about them as well. So yeah, please check them out. There's a link in the description for you to do that, and you actually get 50% off your card machine if you do that. Also, like the podcast, liking gets it out to more people, and subscribing obviously grows the community. You can become a channel member as well for £2.99 a month. You'll get early access to interviews, and you will also be able to use custom emojis in the live chat for your specific club. Let me know as well when you become a member what club you support, and I will add that emoji if you're into that kind of thing. And the scores and the doors are at the moment, I can get it up here, 93-90. Where would you be, Paul? Where would you actually be without all these guests who fill in for your little holidays away?
I'll probably be in a similar position as now. I've got to back myself.
No, you wouldn't. Would you?
No, I don't. Okay.
Rob steps in. It's always him as well. He steps in when you go away, and then for some reason he seems to just absolutely destroy me. And then as you're living it up abroad or wherever you are, you come back and you say, "Oh, thanks, Rob. You've got me back level now." And then now I've kind of took the lead again. So yeah, he won't be coming back on, by the way.
Oh, he's got. I'm not here next Thursday. I am away again, so I do need some assistance. So, Rob, if you're out there, please.
There's definitely a trophy, so you're not getting away with that one.
Oh gosh, yeah, you're right. I got away with that one. Listen, I can get a maximum of 7 points this week. Not a huge amount of games to be played with, but I've got to just try and claw it back to get it to sort of even kill before the next round of National League games. Yeah,
of course, the Prediction League is actually sponsored by your page, Paul. If you'd like to just give that a bit of a plug, as obviously you've not been on for a while.
No, I've not. No, PTF Travel, my wife and I run a travel business. We can cater for most. I have had a customer who, unfortunately, I haven't been able to fulfill. Someone who is a listener, so I do apologise on that front. But we do all sorts of holidays. It's coming up. Black Friday sales are on. People are starting to think about holidays next year. So if anyone pass it around. Anyone needs a holiday, short break, city break, skiing, everything, just give us a shout and we'll be able to help. It's not a problem at all.
Actually, I'm not being serious now. I might need your help with that after the podcast has finished. Because I've got a bit of an idea. So yeah, I might need your help with that, Paul. To be fair, so I'll speak to you. But no, Chris. Before we get onto the predictions, of course, Chris is from Melbourne in Australia. Of course, you travelled out there, Paul. He's asked you how your holiday was.
The holiday in Melbourne was brilliant, Chris. Well, Sydney and Melbourne. I visited Melbourne for 4 days. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. My little lad, who's 13, Joe, he got a chance to train with the South Melbourne under-14s whilst he was out there because I've got a friend who's involved in the club. Yeah, I didn't want to come home, if I'm brutally honest, but I knew I had to do the podcast with Luke, so that made me come home. But loved it. It was great. And I'm hoping to go back at Christmas time. I've been invited back to go and watch the Boxing Day test at the MCG. So I know that's cricket, not football, but it's something I've always wanted to do. And watch an Ashes test and be able to do that in Australia on Boxing Day would be brilliant. So I may be back down your neck of the woods, Chris, in the next 12 months.
I might have to get my mum on, to be honest, to do predictions for when you're away. I'll just get a mate. No, actually, I'll get a mate who's like a Huddersfield fan or something, just to do his predictions for you, Paul.
You're probably feeling better than me.
Yeah, probably, to be honest, at times. But no, I shouldn't get too cocky, to be honest, because it'll come back to bite me. But no, we'll have a look at the league table quickly, of course, before we get on with the predictions. But this is how the table's looking at the moment. Of course, Barnet back to top of the league. Feels like quite a long time ago since they were, of course, leading the way in the division. Forest Green dropped to second. York third and Oldham fourth. Of course, if Oldham win the game in hand, they'll be right in the thick of this title race, won't they?
Oh, without doubt. And yeah, they're doing very well, Oldham, and took Boston apart this week. And yeah, very, very good team. Mickey Mellon's got them playing, and they're certainly a serious contender. Barnet as well had a couple of losses, didn't they, on the bounce in terms of York and Solihull, but have really bounced back. They'd lost to York and Solihull. They were 3-0 down against Dagenham, 1-4-3, and haven't lost since. So they're bang on it again, and Forest Green will just be consistently good at the top end, and people are going to want to beat teams like that. So it's a tough gig for Forest Green every time they go out and play. Everyone will want to beat them, being one of the bigger sides and having just come down. So yeah, Oldham, York, Forest Green, and Barnet are certainly looking the 4 strongest teams at this stage.
What I find quite fascinating and interesting about this season is the fact that there's no side for me. There ain't even 2 sides that stand out, if that makes sense, that could go on to win the league. Where previously this time last year, Chesterfield will have been like 7 or 8 points clear at this time last year. So we kind of knew that they were going to go on to win the league title. Year before, of course, you had Wrexham and Notts County, and by this point, those 2 had just kind of flown away compared to the rest of the division. They were in a kind of a league of their own, to be honest. Whereas this season, I think a lot of people may have thought York were the team to beat and that they could potentially break away from the pack and kind of go on to win the league. Yet, of course, they lost in midweek to Altrincham. They lost to Forest Green a few weeks ago. And I think at times, even in games that they have won, they've also proven that they are actually beatable. I think the Halifax game, for example, showed that for me. And I don't know about you, Paul, but overall, I look at sides that have come to the share this season and when I've gone there, and there aren't many sides that stand out to me. They all seem quite similar, if that makes sense. So, of course, when you play York compared to when you're playing Ebbsfleet, for example. But, I mean, you think of all these sides around here, and I just feel like you're kind of playing the same type of teams every single week. I don't know if you think that. Or...
No, I completely agree. They're all much of a muchness. But I think what it is, Luke, they've all got stronger, haven't they? The league hasn't weakened. We've lost those really stellar clubs in the last 2 or 3 seasons, and now you're now left with those that are all very similar. And those teams are improving and recruiting harder and becoming stronger all the time. Hence why we see it so difficult, especially for those newly promoted sides, apart from 1 or 2 anomalies that struggle to stay in the league. So I think you're right. It's 2 weeks ago, Barnet look, did they have the bottle to do it? They certainly look like they do now. York look like running away with it. A couple of losses in the last 3 or 4 games. They're looking susceptible. So Oldham have done exactly what we wanted them to do for the last 3 years, and they've got themselves together and are now pushing on. Gateshead up, slightly down, up, because of their managerial changes they get and players have to come in now. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a real level of consistency in terms of quality across the league. I think it's getting stronger across more teams rather than it getting weaker because we've lost them bigger teams out of it. And it certainly makes for a better league overall. And talk about the 2 up, 4 down makes it even again, helps that even more.
People will probably disagree with this, but I don't think any of these sides in this division this season lay the gloves of Chesterfield from last season. I think if you put Chesterfield's last season's side in this division, I would still think that they would probably go on to win the league. Some may disagree with that, and particularly, the last couple of years with Notts County and Wrexham, I don't think any of the sides are anywhere near as strong as those 2 clubs were. But for me, I think that makes it more entertaining. Like I said, I think the league's more balanced. I think it's actually stronger, like you've mentioned there, across the division. Whereas when Notts and Wrexham were in the league and they won it, the rest of the division, I don't think the actual squads were that strong. Whereas now, I think your Halifaxes, your Altrinchams, your Solihuls, they're all getting stronger. And obviously a lot of big sides was to drop down into this division, but they're not dropping down into this division as basket cases. They're dropping down into this division and actually pulling themselves together, like we've seen with Rochdale, like we've seen with Hartlepool to a certain extent. They haven't come down and kind of slipped through the net like Scunthorpe did, or struggled like Oldham have. They've all seemed to kind of get it together as soon as they've dropped down into this division. So for me, overall, I think across the league, it's a lot stronger, like you've mentioned there. For me, I look at Barnet and I think their away record shows that, they're beatable, and that's why I can't see them pulling away either. Forest Green, they've got a very small squad. I look at them, and honestly, when I saw them against Halifax, I didn't really know what to expect because, they don't keep much of the ball. But I didn't particularly rate them. I didn't think I would, in a way, because they don't keep the ball and they seem to catch teams on the break. So they're good defensively and they just catch you on the break. Whereas I think most people would say when you see a good side, it's usually because they've kept a lot of the ball and they do a lot with it, where Forest Green don't need the ball to actually be effective. So I think they are a good side in my own right, but they felt like they were beatable. So for me, like you've mentioned, I don't think there's any side that sticks out for me at the moment. If I was to pick a side that was going to win the league, I wouldn't be very comfortable doing that prediction at this moment in time. I don't know about you.
No, I think you're right. I think we've got to look at it and go, realistically, it's probably out of that top 4 to go up automatically, and then there'll be the strong contenders in the playoffs with the likes of Halifax, Altrincham, Rochdale, Solihull making up the numbers and putting a bit of a push on. Yes, it'd be interesting to see how they get on over Christmas. We've got a lot of, once the FA Trophy games are off, we've got a lot of games coming up over Christmas and New Year. See where the league lies in January and how the form's been and what injuries are like. And then you look at recruitment in January, where they're looking to improve and fill the gaps of their squads to try and make that push on for the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously looking at the playoffs as well. For me, I think those 4 in particular are probably all going to finish inside the playoffs. You look at these sides: Gateshead, Rochdale, Altrincham, Halifax, and Solihull, and probably a few down who you may think could put a late run together to get inside the playoffs. I would probably say I think those 3 spots are up for grabs for me overall. Obviously, there's a bit of a gap between Gateshead, but you look at Gateshead's form overall, and it's not been the most consistent, has it? Is there any sides down there for you that you could see putting a bit of a run together and finishing inside the playoffs? I think the one for me is Hartlepool at the moment.
I think Hartlepool, if Lenny Lawrence carries on with his sort of positive results that they've got since he's gone in, they've only lost 1 in the last 7 and none in the last 3. So if you look at Yeovil at 13th, that's probably where you're looking at those teams. So, half the league is still involved in the top half of the table. Are Dagenham, Tamworth, Southend, etc.? Could they get dragged into a relegation battle? So you've almost got half the table looking up, half the table looking down, and in December. So a good position to be in as a fan of National League. Not so good if you actually follow one of those teams, but in certain circumstances. But yeah, I think Hartlepool possibly, Sutton, if their young squad can get a bit more consistent and start to learn the league and work it out. Eastleigh, they're only propped up there because of their good start. Otherwise, they'd be banging trouble. Again, like Solihull and Halifax, just a little bit more consistency, then they'll be in there. But yes, it's good. It's a good, interesting league and very even, which I think is what we all like about it this season.
Yeah, I'd say it's been the most interesting it's been in quite some time. Obviously, when Wrexham and Notts got promoted, it was obviously there were a lot of big sides in the league that season. But in a way, you kind of knew what sides were going to finish inside the playoffs. I think last year, the best thing about the league was actually who were going to finish inside the playoffs and who were going to go down. You knew that Chesterfield were going to win the league. So for me overall, like I said, this season, no one can. I know it's still early, but no one really knows who's going to go down. No one knows who's going to win the league, and no one knows who's going to finish inside the playoffs. And we're nearly halfway through. So for me overall, it's certainly going to be a very, very exciting and entertaining second half of the season. But we'll get on with the predictions now anyway. Game week 21, Braintree versus Gateshead. Braintree, of course, as we mentioned, we spoke about in quite a lot of depth tonight. Harrops obviously departed from there. They're coming up against the Gateshead side that actually lost in midweek to Rochdale at home. Can you see Gateshead getting back to winning ways?
I think so. I don't think they're going to be phased the fact they're playing away from home and that they've lost the game in the midweek. They went to Maidenhead and put 5 past them just recently down here in the south. So I think Gateshead will win 3-1. They both need the points for different reasons. Gateshead obviously want to try and keep in that playoff positions. They have only got 4 points out of the last 12, so that's not great. Braintree are they going to have to try and prove something to their interim manager or the manager maybe in the stands watching them who's going to be taking the job on. But losses to Boston and Maidenhead in recent weeks is not going to help them. So I can't see Gateshead losing this game. I think they will win 3-1.
I agreed with you, but I'm going to change it. I'll go for a 2-1 Gateshead win. More of the same as what you said there. Like I've said, Braintree, I don't think it's the type of sacking where I could see like a bounce coming from there, because I don't honestly think that the fan base are pretty happy with that. So for me overall, I think at the moment it'll probably be more of the same until they'll appoint a new manager. And Gateshead, you look at their position at the moment, they need to get back to winning ways, and they've proven at times that they can put sides to the sword like they did against Maidenhead. So I think here they'll be able to pick the result up. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Gateshead win. Moving on to the next game, it is actually Ebbsfleet versus Boston, 23rd versus 24th. Can Ebbsfleet finally get a win? That's the question for you. You on mute, Paul? I'm not actually on. Yeah, you're on mute.
I think Boston will win 2-0, and I think the incentive for Boston here is if they lose and Fylde win, and I know they're both ifs, then that gap opens even more. Fylde are playing Sutton away. Potentially, there's going to be a loss there for Fylde. Boston have got to try and get these points just to keep. They don't want to end up being a little bit like Ebbsfleet, where they're cut adrift. Ebbsfleet, if they win, they've got a game in hand in Boston. That's then they can catch Boston. So there is an incentive here to win. There's these small gains that they need to acquire to get themselves out of trouble. Starts with games like this. I mean, it's a 6-pointer to a point, or is it because they're so far sort of down the leagues? Is it too even now saying, is it worth it being a 6-pointer? I think it is, because they've got to look at those little gains to try and help them get up. And I think Boston are just a strong team when they can be against those that they're not particularly. Sorry, against the teams that are above them with more quality, they struggle. But the teams around them, I think, physically, they're going to be okay and use that sort of style to bully teams, etc. And I think they will beat Ebbsfleet 2-0.
Yeah, I'm going. I'm going to go for an Ebbsfleet win. I think the duo win. I think this is a huge game for both clubs because I think it's the last chance for both. Of course, Boston, I think they're only 5 points away from actually getting out of the drop zone. But for me, overall, I look at Boston. You've mentioned there about the gap. If failed win, it could go to 8 points. And this is no disrespect to Ebbsfleet, but I think we've both seen Ebbsfleet play this season. If Boston, in the position that they are now, can't go away to Ebbsfleet and win there, then they're not going to be able to survive for me, and that'll prove that they're going to go down, to be honest. For Ebbsfleet, it's certainly their last chance. I think even if they win this game, I don't think anyone will be too excited to getting. I don't think anyone will be, even Ebbsfleet fans will be getting carried away thinking that they'll still be able. They have a chance of being able to stay up. I just feel like the duo win. They've only had 2 wins all season, and if they are going to get a win, it'll come against Boston. But yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting game, and it's certainly going to be quite a nervous one for both clubs because I think they could essentially relegate each other here, to be honest, this early on in the season. We'll move on to the next game then now, and it's my side, Halifax versus Southend. Southend midweek drew away from home, Woking, a 0-0 draw. Cav Miley, of course, got a red card. Southend aside, they've got quite a small squad at the moment. Bit of a plug here as well. For those who maybe Southend fans or just enjoy the league in general, I did an interview with Justin Rees, and that's available to everyone on the channel now. So after this, if you want to see that, you can do that. Of course, he's the Southend owner. But for me, overall, look at Southend at the moment, and the side for me that are struggling for goals. And we know how Halifax are. They're not particularly a prolific side. They're very similar in the way they both play. And it's kind of a negative prediction from myself. But I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw. Southend are very good defensively. I think we'll struggle to break them down. And I don't think Southend have the firepower to be able to cause us any issues. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw for this game. How do you see it going?
I've gone with Halifax to win 1-0, Luke.
Oh, God.
Sorry, mate. Yeah.
Is that still a thing? I haven't really looked at it. Is that still a thing this season where
I don't analyse it enough I know that it gets you worried when I predict Halifax to win, but it's not going to be a high scoring. It'll probably be 4-4 now that we've both put the dampeners on the fact that they don't score many, etc. But Halifax are at home. They're in a good run of form. Southend are solid enough, aren't they? They're not going to go down, but they're not going to go up. I think the pressure will be on them maybe next season if this season doesn't go hugely well. But at the moment, they're in that period of consolidation on and off the field, and I think that's just got to be accepted. So I think Halifax will be too strong and win 1-0.
Next game, and I think this is game of the game week. Hartlepool improving in recent weeks under Lenny Lawrence since he's been made the permanent manager, and actually since he's took over from being assistant and became the main man. He's only actually lost 1 game, and that came away to York. For me, I look at this game and Barnet, very, very mixed. They've got a very mixed form away from home, haven't they? They've lost a fair few games. If you actually look at their away form, I think they're like 12th in the league. For me, like I said, Hartlepool's getting strong. They've got a good side, in my opinion, when you actually look at the individuals that they've got there, capable of scoring goals on their day. I think this will be quite an entertaining game. It's certainly one that if I wasn't at a game this weekend, I'd be tuning into. I'm going for a 3-2 Hartlepool win. How do you see it going?
I went with 2-2. I think you're right. I think, Barnet showed a huge amount of resilience to be 3-0 down against Aldershot and win 4-3, and that's going to give them a huge amount of confidence going away from home. They're a strong side, Barnet, aren't they? And they've, like we said before, they recovered from them York and Solihull losses very, very well, 1-3 on the bounce, and because of other results as well, they've gone top. took them a while to shrug off Yeovil the other night. I think it was a fairly comfortable first half for them, and Yeovil came back and did equalise at one point, but Barnet have just shown their quality and taken advantage of Yeovil's lack of defenders, etc., and won the game, and had to do what they've done to get another 3 points, especially when you saw the other results around them favoured them. So, yeah, that's a tough place to go, Hartlepool. Hartlepool is not going to be warm up there, is it? It's not going to be pleasant. I don't suppose the weather and everything else. So, a real good National League game that, and I think it will be 2-2.
Moving on to the next one then, which is Sutton versus Fylde. Sutton with back-to-back wins, on the verge of actually getting back inside the playoffs. It feels like a long time ago since they were flying at the start of the season. Your side actually too, I think you predicted them to come second this season.
Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah.
To be fair, go on then. Sorry, Paul.
No, I just thought that they did so well to get up, and they didn't come down because of financial reasons and bonker owners and change of managers and everything else. Yes, they did change their manager, but they brought in someone with a little bit of experience and knowledge, Steve Morrison. Big change of their squad, and I think when we predicted that, the squads were still a little bit unknown, and I genuinely thought because of their off the field stability that they'd be one of these clubs that could bounce back. It's not proving that at the moment. They're not by any means having a disastrous season. They've got a young squad, very good. I saw them at the Vale in the season. I was very impressed with them, and I think if they can show a bit more consistency, like I just said, if they can get to grips with the league, which they will over time, they'll start pushing up again. And I guess Steve Morrison will bring in players to complement that young squad, and I think they'll be okay. And they may sneak into in and around the playoffs. I don't think they'll go up automatically like I suggested, but they'll do okay. And I think they will win on Saturday. I think they'll beat Fylde. Fylde, the form of both teams isn't brilliant, in terms of comparisons, but I think Sutton have got slightly better form, and they're at home, and I think they'll win 1-0.
Fylde are probably one of the hardest sides to predict for me because when I actually see them play, whenever I've seen them play, I think they're in a false position. They should be in a lot higher position. They're probably I remember last season, in both occasions when they played against us, they were probably one of the best sides I've actually seen play against Halifax. And obviously, I've not seen them this season yet, and I genuinely do think that they'll be able to kick on, which they haven't. But they are capable of getting the odd result against the better sides, and Sutton mixed form, Fylde capable of scoring goals. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw for this game. Chris has come in and actually said, don't forget your 12th place prediction. I always bring it up so I don't look hypocritical, to be fair, Chris, overall. But no, like I said, the last 2 years I've predicted you to finish 4th and 6th. And both years you disappointed me. So I thought this year I'd get my own back, and then it's kind of just not worked out, has it? Woking v Yeovil then. Woking, a side that could be in danger of dropping into the drop zone. It's not looking good for them at the moment. Yeovil, I think I've said overall I didn't think they'd be able to keep it up and finish inside the playoffs this season. And the last 3 results kind of proved my point. Of course, they're in a position where I could see them finishing now in mid-table. Can they get back to winning ways, though, against Woking away from home?
I think they can. I mean, every team's got to play every team over this season, as we know. But to have Halifax, York and Barnet 3 games in a row, that's tough with they lost 2 players in one game, 1 player in another. I think they're severely lacking defensive options. So they'll be pleased that they're playing a team like Woking who aren't in the best form. It's not at home. It's not a huge park, which is always a benefit. But I think they will beat Woking. Woking are, like we said before, Luke, they're one of those teams that could get pulled into this relegation battle. They're not pulling up any trees. They had a little bit of a spike after their early form wasn't brilliant. I think Yeovil will win 2-1. And they'll give themselves a bit of breathing space because, like you said, they were in the playoffs 3 games ago and 3 losses have dented that. But you've only got to look at it. They're only a couple of wins away from being back in the playoffs. So they're going to have to start winning soon. I think Woking is a favourable game to have after the back of the 3 that they've just faced.
It is, but it's away from home, and Woking are fighting for their lives, aren't they, at the moment? They don't want to get involved in this relegation battle. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for this game. Another one, really quite a hard one to call. I can't see many goals being in it, so I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. And then I think the final game of the game week, before we'll quickly just kind of announce our FA Cup predictions without going into too much detail. York versus Maidenhead, and Maidenhead weren't on the best of form but got back to winning ways, I believe, on Saturday against Braintree. York 2 defeats in the last 5, coming against Forest Green and Altrincham, both away from home. For me, on paper, you might look at this as a game for York where you think this is the type of game they need to get back to winning ways. But, Maiden have got this reputation, haven't they, of doing better against the better sides in the division. And could you see them causing an upset here?
It certainly crossed my mind, Luke. It certainly crossed my mind.
I don't think it will for me.
No, I haven't gone for this time. I've gone for a 4-1 win to York. They are at home. They are very good offensively. Hinshelwood did get it wrong in the week.
Yeah.
His team selection, etc. So, York 4, Maidenhead 1. I think they'll get back to winning ways. Maybe take advantage of Barnet possibly slipping up, because of who they're playing and the tough game they've got. So they're gonna have to try and take the win against teams like Maidenhead at home.
David's come in and said, just gone help, and then he's gone 3-1. I don't know who that is to. I'm probably York, to be honest, but he's usually quite fair. To be fair, I won't be surprised if Maidenhead caused an upset. I don't think it'll be 4-1. I do think York will win. I think they'll win 1-0. I think it'll be a very low-scoring game, this one. But I think for York, it's just about getting back to winning ways, isn't it, for them? If they want to win the title, they don't want to go on a bad run and, allow Barnets and your Oldhams to be able to take advantage of that. Yeah, he has backed York to win. So that wraps up the National League games. We'll quickly do the FA Cup games. Leyton Orient v Oldham. Can you see Oldham winning there?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Orient aren't in the best of form. That's your very, very typical sort of result. A big club like Oldham, back in the FA Cup, semi-finalists back in the 90s, Yeah, without a doubt. I think Oldham are going to be really flying into that one with their recent form and the goals they've scored. And Orient have got to be on it or else they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I've gone for. I think Oldham will win that. I'm going for a 2-1 Oldham win for that one. I think they're struggling, aren't they, as well, Orient, at the moment. What's your prediction then?
Oh, that one. I would go with. I think, a 2-1 win to Oldham.
Next game then that we'll have a look at, Burton versus Tamworth. Perhaps a little bit of a derby. The two sides, I'm sure, have played each other a lot because Burton, used to spend a lot of the time in the lower leagues. Another game where I could potentially see an upset. I think Burton will have too much, though, for Tamworth for me overall. I'm actually going to go for a 2-0 Burton win.
3-1 Burton win, yeah. I think. Yeah, I think their EFL quality will show through, especially being at home. But yeah, you're right, it is a local derby. They'll be well up for it. That'll be a good crowd. Another good game, another good National League EFL tie, that.
And then the final one, your side, Wealdstone v Wickham. Could you see an upset there? I know everything's against you. You couldn't have got a tougher draw on paper, apart from it actually being away at Wickham. Of course, you look at Wickham at the moment, top of the league in League One. Away from home, they've got the best away record as well in League One. Yeah, it's not looking good, is it? For me, overall, I could see an upset. I don't know why, but I could just see Wealdstone getting something against Wickham. How do you see it going?
You're right. It's got everything going for it for an upset, Luke, because of what you just said. You've only got to look at the ground that Wealdstone have got. It's going to have its highest attendance at the Vale. It's on the television. Wickham have lost only 2 games all season. They won in the last minute in the week. It looked like their goal scoring sort of run is going to stop, and they've scored in the 90th minute. Yes, a really, really tough one for Wealdstone. One that the fans are really looking forward to. to be on national television against such an informed side like Wycombe. Last few seasons we've always seemed to draw the best team you can possibly draw at that level. So in the lower rounds we've drawn the likes of Boreham Wood and Sutton, etc. And been knocked out early doors. So we just got to go there, put a good account of ourselves with 5 games unbeaten, which for us is a good run of form, and see what happens. There's no doubt they'll put 100% effort in. Wycombe have got to be on it. They can't come in there and stroll in and think we're 14 games unbeaten and we've scored this many goals, we're top of the league, we're above Birmingham, we've spent millions. If they're not on their mettle, then the Vale's a tough place to come. So yeah, it's got all the hallmarks of an upset. I genuinely don't think it will happen.
No,
no. I think what we'll say, we've got to go deep into that game without being well beaten. If we'll say let a goal in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes, the crowd dies, it becomes difficult, right? So we've got to stay in the game as long as we can. And you never know, something like what happened at Grimsby, bit of a scrappy goal. We won 1-0, we hang on and we get the chance to play Wycombe in the next round. So, the incentive there is a 3rd round tie against a big boy. So that will be in the back of their minds, it'll be back of the club's mind. So you never know. But I do think Wycombe will probably win 3-1.
I think you'll either get thumped, and I mean like 3-0, 4-0, or I think you might cause an upset. My prediction is actually, I don't know why, there's nothing to back it, but I think a 2-2 draw and Wealdstone to it. 3-2, but that 3rd goal to come in extra time. That's my prediction. So quite specific there. So I am backing you to win, to be fair, Paul. So hopefully for you guys, I am correct, because it will be a massive opportunity for Wealdstone to get into the 3rd round. I think just to get to the 2nd round and to have a side like Wycombe come to the Vale is just a great occasion, isn't it, for you guys? But I think obviously you will be wanting to progress as well, because there are only 2. I know there's a big gap. There are only 2 leagues above, and in my opinion, I do think it's not a game that I think people will write off thinking Wycombe will win this comfortably, to be honest.
Oh, no, not at all. Similar to your Oldham game and the Burton Tamworth game, it's financially it's excellent for the football club. It's excellent for all of those that's still in the 2nd round. The carrot of that 3rd round's even better, and that really will spur them on. And Wycombe have just got to be at it, because if they're not, and the Stones are, they're in for a tough morning. There's an exciting buzz about it. We're looking forward to it, and hopefully those that are listening that have got nothing else to do on Saturday morning, tune into ITV and hopefully see Wealdstone give a good account for the National League, and that's exactly another thing that we want.
And also Saturday morning you'll be making an appearance on Talk Sport, won't you?
Yeah, I'm on Talk Sport about 10:30 talking about the build up to the game. As part of their live preparation. So yes, I'll be on TalkSport around 10:30 on Saturday morning with I think Max Rushton and Charlie Baker, the Torquay fan Charlie Baker. So yeah, if you're up and about and listen to TalkSport, you might see myself and hear my dulcet tones on there around 10:30.
Yeah, fair enough. Then I'll certainly be tuning in to see if I see you on there. But no, Paul, once again, thanks for joining me tonight and hosting the show. It's good to finally be back now. The only issue is we can't really get any rhythm going, because after tonight, 2 weeks I think it is without a National League game. So that's the only disappointing thing. But no, I do appreciate you coming on tonight.
No, it's been fun, and hopefully I'll claw back a few points and see where the table lies after this weekend, because again it could all change, couldn't it, both top and bottom.
Yeah, it certainly could. Also, please check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. If you use the link in the description, you'll get 50% off your card machine, no contracts or monthly fees. If you'd like to financially support the channel further, there's also a new page that I've set up. I know hardly anything about it, but it's called Buy Me a Coffee. And if you go down there, you don't physically buy me a coffee. I don't even drink that. But if you use the link in the description, you can donate if you would like to, of course. And just by watching the channel genuinely does do a lot as well. Also, remember to like and subscribe. I think we're just about to approach 2,100 subscribers. So if there's anyone out there who's not subscribed yet, then please do so. That's enough of me waffling now, and we will probably see you when we actually see you, to be honest, because I've got no idea when the next podcast will be. But yeah, cheers to everyone that's tuned in, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.